Okay, so the whole idea of this video came after, coming up with a solution for my friend who feels like slumped and has zero motivation throughout the day. And if you kind of relate to that, I feel like this video is going to be really helpful for you. So please pay attention. So, if I'm being honest, your dopamine levels probably look like this throughout the day. And you wake up late, you get out of your bed all groggy, and you pick up your phone first thing in the morning and go to Instagram and you start scrolling. Hence, we see this spike right over here, right after you wake up. And you see this kind of spikes like so much throughout your day, especially when you eat like, junk food, fast food, ultra processed stuff, sugary cereals, everything like that. Your dopamine receptors just spike. Now, you may not know this, but your dopamine receptors always being like spiked is not really good for your productivity. In fact, it is terrible for your productivity. So what exactly is, you know, productivity? Productivity is like doing the amount of output you can give in a specific amount of time. That's productivity in my terms. I could give you like a formula, give you the definition, but in my terms is the amount of work that you can do in a given amount of time. But before I get into why like the dopamine spikes are like bad for you, I'm Tajwa. My entire this channel is entirely for helping you avoid the mistakes that I made in the past. Now, if you want my credentials, I don't have any, except that I'm a big fucking man. So moving back to why dopamine spikes are bad for you. So let's say you freshly finished a video game, a hard, boss like in Elden Ring or Dark Souls. So let's say you just finished a hard boss and right now your dopamine is through the roof, absolutely skyrocketed because you just finished a hard boss after all the grinding of like 3 hours, 4 hours, getting the right materials for the upgrade, this, that, and the other. So your dopamine levels are absolutely livid. Now, let's say after you beat the boss, you think to yourself, okay, there's like a 3 or 4 more post game stuff. Some games have those. So let's say your game has some post game stuff and you really want to finish them. But your dopamine is like really high. And also at the same time, you think to yourself, I've just finished the main story of the game, but I also want to study right now. Well, simply put, you're not going to study because your dopamine levels are through the roof right now at their peak. And studying really make sure your dopamine levels like go down, take a little nosedive, and your brain does not want that. Your brain wants to always have like a high amount of dopamine. So your brain is not going to allow you to study because if you let's say you force yourself to study, you're going to have to reread lines a couple of times to get like the one line's message to your brain. That's why having high spikes of dopamine throughout the day is not good for you. And let's say your dopamine levels is high, you're not going to do any other stuff. Like you might think to yourself, okay, studying is boring, but no, not the same with working out. Well, working out also requires willpower. Imagine this, you've just gamed for like 6 hours and you think to yourself, all right, it's about 4 p.m. right now. I probably should, go to the gym, hit a quick workout. You're not going to do this because your dopamine levels are absolutely, you're skyrocketed through the roof. And to go to the gym, it requires your brain to like lower down on the dopamine it craves. So you're not going to do any of the good stuff. So to avoid this, we want our dopamine levels to look like this throughout the day. So here you can see the dopamine spikes are like really low at the start, but gradually it like spikes up later on the day. And that is the principle of dopamine loading. Now, you want to handle your non negotiable task early in the day. But what exactly are the non negotiable tasks? Well, I have a whole video on this right about here. But to give you the simple breakdown, it is like let's dim it down to 3 tasks. So, 3 tasks that you need to do every single day. And if you manage to do it, no matter what happens throughout the rest of the day, your day is a win and you've moved the needle in life. Do you want to handle these things first thing in the morning? Because if you don't do this first thing in the morning, well, you might risk the chances of your dopamine levels spiking and you're not going to do this throughout the day. And secondly, so let's say your dopamine levels are like lowered, you're still not going to do this at the capacity that you can do it first thing in the morning because then you have the highest amount of energy and the highest amount of motivation right at the start of the morning. So that's exactly why I want you to tackle your non-negotiable task early in the morning, first thing in the morning. And when your dopamine levels are like reset And after the non-negotiable tasks are done, gradually implement whatever you want to do throughout the day. Let's say you play video games, you can grind for like 6 hours as long as non-negotiable tasks are done. And I want you to be brutally honest with yourself here. You want to make sure your non-negotiable tasks are like actually non-negotiable. It can't be like replying back to this guy, or it can't be doing the chores around the house, although which is good for you, but you don't need to make it your non-negotiable task. For me, my non-negotiable task is doing something with the YouTube channel. Secondly, it is studying, and thirdly, it is working out. So it's kind of got to be like this, something that moves your needle. So I also want you to have three non-negotiable tasks, and after it's done, go ahead and watch anime, Netflix, or start scrolling. I do not care. Just get your three non-negotiable tasks done throughout the day. And hey, if you want to be more productive, have more motivation throughout the day, implement dopamine loading into your lifestyle.